and welcome to another session, the first for this week, very fresh, well rested, I hope, for you. And our topic for this afternoon, we're looking at the second National Anti-Corruption Strategy and Action Plan in perspective. My name is Shianwa Desire Kahiha, and I'm your host for this afternoon. We've got two gentlemen in the studio this afternoon that will be helping us to actually put this strategy and action plan into perspective. But before we do that, let us give it over to our Dr. Kalimbi Shangula, Minister of Health and Social Services. He is to give us an update for the 13th of March, I believe, Doctor?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much, moderator, esteemed panelists, fellow Namibians. It's again that time that I have to share with you the latest update on COVID-19. And today I'm going to share with you the report of the 13th of March 2022. We have received 758 results within the last 24 hours reporting cycle, and out of those, 11 of the results have tested positive for COVID-19, which gives us a 1.5% positivity ratio. Among them are 8 females and 3 males. The range is from 10 months to 74 years. They as follow: Ochadonjupa, 3, with 2 from Okakarara and 1 from Grootfontein. Erongo, 2, all from Sokopmund. Oshikoto, 2, 1 each from Onanjokwe and Omthia. Oshana, Komas, Karas, and Omaeke have recorded 1 each from Oshakati, Vinhu, Kiermanshoop, and Khobabis, respectively. Among the confirmed cases, we have 3 learners. 1 of the cases have received 1 dose, and 3 cases are fully vaccinated, while 7 cases are not vaccinated. On the positive side, we have not recorded any. My apology. We have not recorded. I start again, not on the positive side. I want to say we have not recorded any recovery during the period under review. The number of active cases is now 222, and 22 of them are currently hospitalized across 8 regions. 3 of the hospitalized cases are fully vaccinated, while 19 are not vaccinated, which gives us a percentage of 86.4%. We have 4 cases in ICU, and all of them are not vaccinated. The distribution of the hospitalization is as follows: Oshikoto 5, Komas 5, Oshana 4, Ohangwena, Karas, and Orongo 2 each, and Kavango East and Hardap 1 each. This is now when I come to the positive side, that we have not recorded any death during the period under review. And if you may recall that for the past 7 days, we have not recorded any death. By the 12th of March, a total of 437,087 people aged 18 years and above have received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine, which gives us a 30% of the target population. 127,126 have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, while 250,626 adults have received 2 doses of other vaccine types. Hence, 377,752 adults have completed their vaccinations, translating into 26% of the target population, of the adult target population. A total of 128 individuals have received component 1 of Sputnik 5, and 76 has received component 2 of the same vaccine. which gives us a total of 204 doses of Sputnik 5 which were administered. I may add here that we no longer offer Sputnik vaccine because we do not have them anymore.
Okay.
10,591 children aged 12 years and 17 have received one dose of Pfizer vaccine, which represents 3.4 of the children target population. Of these, 2,931 are fully vaccinated, and therefore the cumulative number of people vaccinated with first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine for both adult and children is now 447,678, of which 683 are fully vaccinated, which translate into 21.4% of the total target population. 32,980 people have received COVID-19 vaccine booster dose. In terms of the summary, now the cumulative number of infections since the start of the pandemic is 157,449. The total number of recovery is 155,286, which gives us a recovery rate of 97.3%. The number of deaths due to COVID-19, 3,685, with 329 as COVID-related deaths, giving us a total deaths where COVID-19 is involved to 4,014. So far we have tested 968,999 samples so far. Total number of people currently in quarantine facilities 480. This concludes today's update, and may I just remind the public that tomorrow His Excellency the President will host the 41st public briefing where new information about COVID-19 will be shared.
Okay.
I thank you.
Okay. Now, Doctor, before I let you go, just a quick question for the sake of clarity. You did refer to the fact that the Sputnik vaccine, unfortunately, we have run out as a nation. Was the Sputnik vaccine a single or a double dose vaccination?
Yeah, Sputnik vaccine is a double dose. You have component 1 and then component 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the case where you have some Namibians who have received the first dose, and now, unfortunately, it has run out, what options do they have?
Well, they have other options, like we have in the case of a booster. You may get AstraZeneca first and second dose, and you may take Pfizer as your booster. So the same can happen with Sputnik.
Okay.
So there are also alternatives. They are not left in the lurch.
Okay, so it's not restricted, the second dose is not restricted to a Sputnik dose. They can receive AstraZeneca as their second dose.
Yeah, there are other alternatives as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanting to make sure that people out there, please do not deter yourself now that you are hearing that the initial Sputnik vaccine that you got is no longer available. You can still go back and receive an alternative for the second dose as well as your booster. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Very important question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. There you have it. We are having some form of combating power over this COVID, especially as Dr. Kalumbi Shangula has stated that in the past 7 days, we have not reported any deaths. So honestly, Namibians, we are winning. We are getting there to a certain degree, but it takes that cumulative fight to actually continue to ensure that this COVID-19 does not affect us the way that it had affected us in the past 2 years. It devastated us as a country. So it is up to us, all of us, combined to make sure that the devastation does not continue. We are heading into our winter season, so strongly we are requesting that, regulations are adhered to. Keep the social distancing, sanitize your hands regularly, wash them regularly with running water and soap, and also please disinfect your surfaces. And as Dr. Kalumbi Shangula stated, do tune in tomorrow as the President will be giving his 41st COVID update. Continuing with the show this afternoon, we did say that we are looking at the second National Anti-Corruption Strategy and Action Plan in Perspective, for short, Nacsap 2. And in the studio, I have the Executive Director from the Anti-Corruption Commission, the ACC, that is Mr. Tilvas Natangwe Shilongo. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, madam, and thank you for...
And then we also have a former cluster member for Nacsap, who is a representative from the Ministry of Mines and Energy, a stakeholder in Nacsap, and that is Mr. Paulinus Shehama. Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, Desire, and good afternoon, viewers.
Yeah, thank you very much for actually taking the time out. It is always good for us to explain and prepare the nation, inform them on different things that are taking place, especially those that have to do with their lives, because it affects their lives as well. Yeah. And it's always what I say, our topics here are very much national topics, and you are welcome to bring in your voice. You are welcome to bring in your voice into the discussion. And as I say, it's a discussion. It's where we are communicating. So please do make sure. We will open our lines a little bit later on in the show. Kicking it off, we would like to hear from Mr. Shilongo. If we were to walk in Okonjato, and we find one of my grandmothers there, and we need to explain to her what is Nacsap. I created my own acronym for it. How do we explain it to him or her, what the strategy is all about?
Thank you, Desara, and thank you very much for giving ACC opportunity to communicate and explain what the strategy is all about, and more specifically the second National Anti-Corruption Strategy and its action plan 2021-2025. I think to put things into perspective, the strategy that is a National Anti-Corruption Strategy and Action Plan was, as you may recall, was approved by Cabinet at its 22nd 2021 decision-making meeting held on the 9th of December. Now, following that approval, it's a wish of Cabinet and the nation at large that since this strategy has been approved, it needs to be implemented. And what it means is that Cabinet realized that Namibia need to have a key enabler, a tool that will usher the country into combating and preventing, evils of corrupt practices in our society, and they also as well educate the nation and the society at large on the danger of corruption thereof. Hence, the strategy in a nutshell is just a plan that is crafted by the nation to usher it into dealing with these menace of corruption.
Okay. Very simple. Strategy to deal with the menace. I like the way you placed it. But staying on the fact that this is now the second one, and the first one was covered the period of 2016-2019. Can you give us key highlights from that first one, especially when it comes to the public sector?
Well, I must say the first strategy was held in terms of its implementation, held into a number of achievements that was made during, its phase of implementations.
Yeah.
You may recall that that strategy has had about 6 strategic objectives and about 75 actions. And of that, they were all implemented, which, indicate that we have achieved an overall achievement of about 73%. Now, the second strategy ushers us more because, having learned from the implementations of the first strategy, the new issues, new dynamics, came into play, and those things then needed to be addressed.
Okay.
Hence, we decided as a country, as a nation, that I think we needed to come up with another strategy, the second national strategy. And now this second national strategy has got about 8 strategic objectives and about 95 actions. Now, it is expected of all national stakeholders that is now the public, the private sector, the local authority, the government, the civil society organizations, to actually be part of the national effort to make sure that this strategy is implemented to the letter. And I think that is what it is, and we're looking forward to the launch, as you know.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Shahama, the Ministry of Mines has been lauded as one of the institutions that were very much proactively engaged in the implementation of the first strategy. What actions was the ministry executing and reporting on during that first strategy?
All right. Thank you very much, Desire. Yes, the Minister of Mines and Energy was really an implementing agency. Really implementing the actions that we were entrusted, to us on the strategy. Now, perhaps maybe also just to to locate our discussions, also for the benefit of our viewers. I need perhaps also to indicate, the mandate of the Minister of Mines and Energy, and that is really to take custody of our diverse geological, minerals, and of course your energy, and to ensure that contributes to your socio-economic development of our country. Now, having said, that we had 7 action within the previous strategy that the ministry, was implementing. Yeah, maybe also just to highlight, to you those actions that the ministry was seized with during under the period that we have been dealing with this matter. First of all, we or perhaps before I go to the action, also to indicate that we were a member of the Cluster 4, and Cluster 4 obviously was dealing with the Objective 5, which was dealing with the prevention of corruption in the public sector. Now that obviously include your extractive industry. Now, and that is where we are coming from. Now, in terms of the strategy, there were points that the strategy specifically needed the Minister of Mines and Energy to address. And number 1, I want to indicate that the first action was for the Minister of Mines and Energy to assess and align the current legislations and our subordinate legislations to the best practices of the standard within the extractive industry. And then the second, we were entrusted obviously to to develop the proper mechanism that are transparent and of course that are transparent and equitable in allocation of our minerals. So the third, we were also required to incorporate in the information setup, to incorporate component that speaks to the information, and obviously to ensure transparency and compliance with the international extractive industry. And obviously also to monitor, the grievance and the dispute resolutions. those are where the actions that the Ministry of Mines and Energy was, seized with during, the implementation of the first strategy. I do not know if perhaps you want me to to deal with impact, one by one, or perhaps we can do that as the discussion unfolds.
Yeah, I think we can do that as the discussion goes on and we
All
see
right.
also where
All right.
these keys fitted in.
Yes.
Mr. Shilonga, we come back to you and we would like to know, it's a fact. We plan things in life, but sometimes we are hit with hiccups here and there, and we don't necessarily, we're not always able to achieve everything the way that we wanted to, as we at the onset of any strategy or plan of action. And this is where we want to find out, during the first plan, the 2016-2019 action plan, strategy and action plan, what were some of the shortfalls or hiccups that were encountered by the ACC in the implementation of the strategy? And then also, we noted that there has been an increase from is it 6 to 8? Is it the objectives? Yes, exactly, to 95.
Yes.
Now, with that increase, what are the shortfalls from the first? And obviously the increase will tell us that there was certain things that were identified that actually spoke to the need for that increase of strategic objectives. So maybe if you can just highlight a few of some of these challenges and the mitigating factors.
Yes, thank you, Desley. The few challenges that we had faced during the first strategy implementation was actually, the stakeholder, participation wholly.
Yeah.
You remember that, of course, the purpose of the strategy, one of the aim is also to nurture synergy and collaborations with other strategic stakeholders.
Okay.
So that to foster, and promote efficiency and effective system of ethics and integrity. And of course, it's expected that all these strategy, structures should actually play their parts in order to own the strategy in terms of its implementations.
Okay.
Of course, it was the first experience, but I think given the momentum of what have been achieved from the first strategy implementations, I think going forward, I think in the implementation of the second one, I am quite very optimistic that we will see positive, collaborations from all the strategy stakeholders, from all the structures, be it from the, the strategy steering committee, the clusters,
all the way down,
because these structures pulls in all actors in all our society, because this is a national effort. So we talk about public entities, almost government, we talk about local authorities, we talk about traditional authority, we talk about youth organizations, civil society organizations, and these are the stakeholders to the implementations of the strategy. I think from the lesson learned from the previous strategy implementations, I think we will be able to get together and really pull in one direction. I think that is, and of course, assessing it from what we have seen, the positiveness from the response, especially when we went around the country, conducting evaluation, and also which culminated into the development of the new strategy. We really had a lot of, overwhelming interest from the society at large. Everybody is interested, and I think people begin to understand. I think the strategy is very important for the country to have, and therefore, I think we will have derive, a good result from its implementation.
As Mr. Shilonga is alluding to, it's a societal thing. It's a societal tool and thus we invite you to be part of the discussion this afternoon. It is a national topic, as Mr. Shilongo has explained a bit earlier on. So please do give us a call in the studio to give us your input. If you have any questions, you're welcome to pose them to our panelists. Our line is 061, that's the area code. The number is 400-397. 400-397. You can also communicate to us via our social media platforms. On Facebook, you can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia, pardon me. Our YouTube handle is MICT Namibia. That is on YouTube, MICT Namibia. So please do join the conversation and let us hear what you have to say, or even if you have a question, you're welcome to pose it. Mr. Shilongo, you mentioned stakeholders, and I think as generic as stakeholders could be in a setup or a tool like this, because of the ownership that needs to take place, we would like to find out that during the development of the second strategy and action plan, consultations with specific were done. Who were these specific stakeholders, and why were they selected to be stakeholders with regards to these consultations?
Well, to be specific, the stakeholders to the strategy is actually, in the first place, is the OMAS.
Okay.
OMAS, in the sense that they are the ones that have to implement a number of actions, like my colleague Shehama have just mentioned when he was referring to extractive industries. So they had those specific actions that they needed to fulfill in terms of the strategy requirement, and they needed to meet that obligation. So other stakeholders are, the society, the general public, because you remember that when corrupt practices takes place, it takes place in different
forms,
sectors, in
places,
different spheres of our society. And we as ACC, who is mandated to initiate and investigate corrupt practices, may not be there. So it is important that society stands up and comes to us and say, I think there is this thing that we think is corruption, and then we take it from there. We engage them. So it can be the citizenry at large, it can be members of civic organizations, it can be members of trade unions, it can be youth members in sport fraternities, it can be private sectors. But remember that, of course, one of the objectives is also to strengthen, anti-corruption measures in private sector, because we believe that the corruption also takes place in the private sector. Hence, hence synergy. We are coming up with this strategy to ensure that everybody should not feel left out, in order for us to be, together to fight this scourge.
Very much so. Mr. Shehama, as a former cluster member representing the Ministry of Mines and Energy, we would like to know how else was the MME involved in terms of participation, and this specifically speaking to the development of the second strategy and action plan? Because a lot of consultation was done, a lot of meetings were held. What was that role that the MME took up during that process?
All right, thank you very much for the question. Really, the role that the Ministry of Mines and Energy, played, within this whole, setup was really, critical, and I would really appreciate, all accord this to, to my executive director, because this, I would say this was a top-bottom approach.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there was that really emphasis coming from, from top, to
Yes.
say that as a ministry we need, to give our best. We know that we are leading an economic, ministry, and of course we need really to ensure that we have done what we would have, what we entrusted to be done. But again, Desire, I thought I needed just to share with the viewers, perhaps also them to appreciate what we with the ministry, really has been, seized with in terms of, with this strategy. I needed really to say that of all those, really actions that the ministry was doing, I want, for example, to look at the requirement that talks to the alignment of the, of our legislations,
Yes.
to speak, to the standard, requirements.
Yeah.
So what we have done, we will notice that the Minister of Mines and Energy is now busy, or has been busy now, reviewing our acts. This is now your Diamond Acts, your mineral, your mineral acts, and many other acts. But again, if I may also just share with the viewer, is to say that on this one, what we have engaged we've engaged the cabinet on the substantive proposed changes, and then obviously we have already received, those feedback, from the cabinet, and of course we made already also provision with the new proposed, review in the current bill to include, of course, the scalar miner, the small scalers permit, and of course we have developed action plan, that to deal with the remaining activity towards the finalization of this review process. So now you notice that now the actions that we are, for example, left with in this specific item is now to go back to consultation with our stakeholders, obviously, the extractive industry and the public alike, and then the other being now that once we receive now the feedback, we will be able then to really to feed those feedback into our feedback into our laws, or our bill.
Yeah.
And the other part also, perhaps I thought I wanted to to share with you, was to to develop proper mechanism and those actions that the ministry has taken so far, in terms of how do we then deal with that specific action. What we did was we established a number of committees within our establishment. For example, we have the Mineral Licensing Adversary Committee. Now, this is a committee that deals with the, your allocation of exclusive prospective license. I want to give you, a scenario how things were before we come here. So, previously, even though the law, requires that, the law, empowers the mining commissioner to, to administer, the act. Obviously now to also to advise the minister on that aspect. So obviously you would also appreciate that now. Previously we did not have, your terms of reference in terms of how this, even though we had committee, there was no terms of reference in terms of how this committee perhaps would operate. Also perhaps, the method on the assessment, method. These are things that we thought they were crucial to have in terms of our processes. And we also have, other committees like your Diamond and Licensing and Security Evaluation Committee. This is also another committee that was not there before, because then you had Diamond Commissioner in terms of act who is mandated, to deal with the administration of the act. But we thought for the good governance or for effective governance purposes, you want, to have again, members that are dealing with this aspect. In this case, for example, you have your Minister of Mines and Energy that are participant into this committee. You have the Minister of Environment. You have the NAMPOL. This is now your Protected Resources Unit, and then obviously we have the Minister of Finance as part of this committee. Yeah, and we also have other many committees that we have established just to ensure that there are, processes. Our processes are, there are participation of other OMAs, not necessarily only either the department or the ministry and the specific department that is dealing with this most important, licensing and permit application processes or legislation processes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's actually quite enlightening. I mean, a lot of the times we don't really hear of what goes on underground. We hear of, yes, consultation, yes, launch, and then we think it goes quiet. But clearly, there are other many processes. The engine keeps moving, even when they're out of the light or the sight of many to see these particular actions. As we said, it is a national conversation, and we would like to welcome a caller to our show. Good afternoon, and how are you?
I'm fine with that. Two questions.
Yes.
Strategy. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, so you can continue.
Yeah, the men from ICC say the strategy they were stakeholders. Stakeholders in the drafting of the strategy. Can they incorporate the stakeholders in the assessment of the strategy at the end of the period?
Okay.
Can that be because it doesn't help with the strategy? The issue is the implementers. We who are not implementers are supposed to assess your performance at the end of the period.
Yeah.
It's supposed to implement the previous strategy so that we can know you are working or not working. The issue is the lawmakers. You know, our friend from the Ministry of Energy is talking about the law. You know, the people who are putting up the law, either the ACC or the Mineral Act or whatever, have a vested interest in those laws. Such at the end of the issue is, I'm not breaking any law. That is a crucial issue. Because the person who is putting up the law is having a vested interest, whether it is in a mining or it's in anti-corruption, he doesn't want to be caught.
Okay.
The third one is, can we have a corruption in the ICC itself? I hope you are following the issue of the future.
Okay.
There were some issues raised. Some were previously raised, like the appointment of the EP. Then the police chief for those kinds of things, and the husband and the wife, those kinds of things. Me, as a citizen, that picture gives some different picture of the ACC.
Okay.
I'm okay. I'm done.
Okay. I think we understand what you're saying, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hamalwa, for participating this afternoon. We will definitely pose your questions to the two panelists that are in the studio. Thank you very much. Mr. Hamalwa's point speaks to my next question, which I was going to pose to you, Mr. Shilonga, and that is with regards to reporting methods, assessment, evaluation, and so on, that is being applied to the implementation of the strategies. And are there such elements being applied? And if yes, what's the frequency thereof? And I think this is how it ties in with what Mr. Hamalwa said, as in a previous strategy was set up, it was launched, it ran its course. When development was being made or done of this particular strategy, consultations were done across the board with multiple stakeholders. And I think where he comes in is, where were these stakeholders when assessment was done, if assessment was done? I think that is one of the bone of contentions that he has, and that is how it ties into my question, as in now we have a second strategy that is being launched to be rolled out. What are the monitoring tools that are going to be used, and what's the frequency thereof? This is a 4-year plan, if I'm not mistaken, 2021 to 2025. Are we going to be doing something every single year to assess whether the plan is working? Is it going according to plan? Do we need to to tweak things here and there. The second point that Mr. Hamalwa brought in was the concept of player and referee. I don't know if I understood him correctly, but it's where you have persons who are part of the setting up of these policies and laws. I think I'll give that one to Mr. Shehama, that are part of these policies and laws, yet they become the persons who are involved in the market, for example, of providing certain services. So it creates that thing where they create a policy fitting their situation, if we can call it that, and hence them not breaking a law because they had set up or played a role in setting up the law in such a way that it actually plays in their favor. I hope I understood Mr. Hamalwa's question and point right, as in what is being done. And I think in that case, especially with the fact that Mr. Shehama, you spoke about a lot of committees that were set up in trying to combat a lot of these problems along the chain. So what are some of, the key things that the ministry, along with its committees, with its stakeholders, try to put in place to try and avoid that particular issue? And then the third question spoke to who watches the watchdog. I think, simply put, that's the third question that Mr. Hamalwa had. So we can start off with Mr. Shilongo with regards to that first question. The second one goes to Mr. Shehama, and then the third one, who watches the watchdog?
Thank you very much, Desiree, and I should thank Mr. Hamalwa for his contribution, and I think his concern is very valid. To start with, I should say that yes, the first strategy, as you know, the stakeholders to the strategy are the strategy implementers. Now, like Mr. Shehama is putting it, that of course they were, in terms of strategic objective 5, it had some actions that they needed to fulfill in terms of their obligation in the extractive industries and other related actions and activity that are related to strategic objective 5. Now, when we were doing the implementation in terms of the structure, there is a structure that is there. But I must say, and I will talk to that a little bit later. The structure at the beginning was in a way okay, because we have a structure that had the National Steering Committee, but that National Steering Committee was only at the level of almost at the level of accounting officers, or permanent secretary, rather, if you like. And in the new strategy, I think we thought more over that, and we have elevated it to a higher, level to include minister now. And obviously, also in the first strategy, there was a little of parliamentary oversight committees. You will also hear now in the new structure that we brought that element into. But generally, the strategy implementation stakeholders, cut across, or they came from all spectrum of our society. Public, private sectors, civil society organization, youth organizations. They were members of the cluster. Now, what had happened is that when the strategy came to an end, so it was felt that we needed to evaluate and determine how far, and of course I think that's the assessment that Mr. Hamalwa is referring to. How far did we achieve the objective of the strategy, of the first strategy? Now, that evaluation was done in terms of, on the basis of the data collected from, clusters meetings. These meetings were taking place, were held, quarterly. Of course, the National Steering Committee is chaired then by our Director General, Mr. Noah. comprising of, as I said earlier, different executive secretaries and the people from the academia and the people from private sector and the trade unions, organizations. Then that data was then used. Of course, there was also desk research that was done. And of course, ACC being the lead coordinator of the implementations of the strategy, ACC would be on the door every time of the implementing stakeholders to say that, yes, before our next meeting, so this is what is expected of you, please, give us information on what you are able to do on this strategy, on these activities, or on this action step. So basically that's what it was. And that is done quarterly, and then there has been quarterly review meetings with the report being compiled and submitted to the upper, structure of the strategy that was the, the National Steering Committee. Of course, the clusters then are the ones that are comprising of other sectors, be it now public, and with various OMAs and other, private and civil society organization in terms of what the strategy dictate to them as to what is expected of them. So then they will report. So that those were the monitoring mechanism that was put in place. And then from there, after the evaluation and the report compiled, we did not just sit there. We went out to the public and consult, and of course we call out meetings of the same people that were involved, strategy stakeholders, to validate the report, the findings of the report. And then from that validations, we went back and we then agreed that, of course, some of these activities are either completed or not completed. Those that were not completed, they still have to find their ways into the new strategy so that they are carried on with. Into in the new strategy. That's what actually happened. And I want to agree with Mr. Amalwa that indeed he is right that the stakeholders should be involved, and indeed, to some extent, that time they were involved. But mind you, there is this notion of ownership. People out there used to think that the strategy belongs to ACC, but the strategy is not our strategy. It's a national strategy. It belongs to all of us. We have to have that ownership of the strategy in our
in our spirits, to be able to know that we can carry this from any level of society, not necessarily just waiting for the doors of ACC to be the ones to carry it out.
Exactly, we're just coordinating, although we have our own, strategic objective and action step that we as an organization need to implement. And we have our own, and we only the secretary, we serve as a secretariat to the strategy. But the things will be different in the second strategy, because now we are going to have a national steering committee that comprises of ministers and deputy ministers, and the clusters that will be inclusive of those OMAs that are in the NGO that are, and all other stakeholders that are going to carry out certain objectives as stated in the strategy. So it will be different. And then we will have also a parliamentary committee on constitutional and legal affairs and oversight committee. So that is
those
this time around.
It
will be different.
I think from Mr. Hamala's point, I think as you have explained about the evaluation and assessment process, from what I understood with Mr. Hamalwa is, why do you consult after you have completed the report? I think with him is, why can't that consultation be done just before the report comes out, so that whatever comes from those consultations can be then included and give a more holistic report? We're running a bit out of time, so unfortunately I can't bring that point back to you. But quickly, as short as possible, what is our response to Mr. Hamalwa's second question?
All right. Maybe I need to, to find out whether perhaps I may not really get well the question, but is Mr. Hamalwa's question on the participation and involvement of the public, or I just need
No,
to know that.
if I understood Mr. Hamala's point correctly, unfortunately, I might not be able to give it point for point.
Yes.
But it's where he gave indication to the fact that sometimes the people who sit on these committees, who are part of the process of creating laws and policies with regards to, let's say, our minerals or so on, are sometimes the ones who become the culprits in breaking these laws or, you know, being involved in what we would see as corruption, but they cannot be prosecuted, if we can speak in those terms. I'm speaking now for a lack of better words, but they cannot necessarily be prosecuted or brought to book because the law in that point in time plays in their favor, where everybody else would see it as something that's wrong. Legally, they haven't done anything wrong. So that's what Mr. Hamala's point speaks to.
All right, yes. That's a bit tricky. Yeah, because... But
just in short,
yes.
Is there any, within the new setups, in the new committees that you have been involved in and the Ministry of Mines and Energy has been involved in, are there any ways to filter these and try and remove these little challenges and possibilities of such things happening?
Yeah, maybe if just to, you know, to say that, you know, the ministry really has in a number, you know, of occasions has really tried to, you know, to make our process more transparent. Now, you know, like I want to give you an example where, you know, the ministry went to an extent of really, you know, reviewing and streamlining and simplifying our, you know, our licenses and the permit application procedure and our assessment.
Yeah.
And in that case, that will tell you that this is where the minister's stand is, that we want, you know, the public really to understand, you know, our processes, to understand what is the requirement. Yet from the onset, you are already, you know, given information in terms of the assessment. What are they going to ask you? For example, let's say you are applying for an, you know, for an EPL. So they already give you an information in terms of what is exactly we are going to ask.
Okay.
What is exactly what we are going to assess you on.
Okay.
So those are the processes that the ministry it has put in place to ensure that, you know, the playing field it's really leveled.
Okay.
And everyone else may be able to access this information. And this information are readily available on our system. Yes.
We have run out of time, but I think it is quite important that we try and give, even if it's just a short, quick response to Mr. Hamala's third question, just for 30 seconds. Who watches the watchdog?
It's quite very interesting. Who watches the watchdog? I think it's the society, the public, the stakeholder. This is why we are reaching out to the stakeholders. They are the owners of this, you know, strategy. National strategy. So OMAS and government is just implementing. This document was born out of you know, wide public consultations, and what is found in the strategy is actually the desire and of the public, what they want to see the strategy, you know, carrying out, and that is also to see that the strategy is being efficiently and effectively implemented by all those stakeholders. In fact, they are giving us that responsibility, and they have to account to them.
Okay. Edie, we have unfortunately run out of time. Quickly, when is the second strategy and action plan being launched?
The second strategy is going to be launched just a day after tomorrow. That is on the 16th of this month. By the Right Honorable Prime Minister. And all strategy stakeholders and implementing bodies will be invited. There will also be an inductions of the strategy stakeholders, so that they are introduced to the strategy, and so that they should know what is expected of them. And that will be at Safari Hotel starting on Wednesday morning. So I take this opportunity to invite all those that the stakeholders that are invited to attend. There will be actually a physical engagement during the launch and
Okay.
inductions, and there will also be a virtual meeting that is organized,
Okay.
because there are some stakeholders who prefers to be
On the virtual
attending
platform,
virtual,
okay.
on virtual platform.
So there we have it. We will have this launch, or the launch will be taking place on the 16th of March at Safari Court. All stakeholders that are involved are encouraged to please make sure that they are present at this particular launch. And COVID has definitely given us some positive ways of doing many things, and that is a hybrid form in which this launch will be taking place. We have unfortunately run out of time, but please do not hesitate to consult any of these two institutions' offices, their websites, and their information sharing sessions. That is actually very important to note. We would like to thank them for being part of our discussion, Mr. Shehama and Mr. Shilongo, and I hope that we have given a little bit of insight with regards to what these strategies have been put, why they've been put in place, and what it is that is expected of them with regards to the plans and the actions that they are going to be putting in place. We do invite you to our next session, which will be taking place on Wednesday, 3 o'clock. Please do be part of that conversation. But from myself, Shianwa Desire Kahiha, along with my production crew that I'm proud of, we would like to say bye-bye. Desire. But don't